Hello again, and it's time for another project. Today we're going to route out this little gingerbread man, and then we'll use a scroll saw to cut him out of the wood. Just a nice little size, coming in at 9 inches, literally by 6 inches, and that's basically not far off the width of my piece of cheap rough fencing wood that we like to use. As always for me, we've printed off our template. I've started to use tracing paper for the last 3 or 4 projects, and you literally can get your tracing paper, as you can see from that, and you put that on your computer screen or your tablet. You can zoom the image in to the size you want and literally draw around it with a pencil. Now it can be done, as long as you keep your hand away from the screen. It's go around easy enough, no problem whatsoever. So we've drawn that out on a bit of cheap tracing paper, saving yourself printing paper and also saving you all the inks that you don't need to use. Once you've drawn around it like so, just a case of putting it on a piece of wood with painter's tape. I always use carbon paper underneath mine. I believe graphite paper is just the same. And we literally just draw around that with a pen. I've seen certain people where they can stick the image straight to the wood, on printer's paper obviously, and route over the top of this. I did try it once, I certainly won't be trying it again. So we've drawn around that over the tracing paper with the carbon paper underneath, and that leaves us a nice image, as you can see from that. And that's plenty for what we need. Just have a little check of your wood first. If you notice, I've had a knot on the wood there. Obviously I didn't want that knot into the side of the face or on the arms or anywhere, so I've had to move it about slightly so we can incorporate it into one of the buttons. We're going to route out the back of this, and that button will be painted, so we're not going to see that knot at all. So just take your time. Obviously this is nice and smooth. We've sanded it down with a belt sander and we are good to go. Now the depths I'm using on my last 3 or 4 projects is literally 3mm. That's basically the same. These are actually 3.175, and I'm going to call them 3mm. The same depth, the thickness as one of those, should I say. That's how deep we will go. Now you can just route out a couple of little sample ones on the side if you wanted to. I tend to have a piece of wood with all different depths on there, and I'll find one that I know is 3mm deep. You could also make yourself a little depth gauge like this if you wanted to, and that would give you the different depths of the routed out areas if you wanted. You can also purchase these digital depth gauges. It all depends what you want to do and how much you're prepared to spend. I will literally, like I say, just take out a couple of nicks on the side and find one that's roughly about 3mm. It doesn't matter if it's 3.5, it doesn't matter if it's 4. You can go as deep as you like or as shallow as you like. It's just a personal thing. There is no set rule to how deep you need to be. Obviously I like to use these CNC bits. They come in different degrees. They're 10s and 15s. These are 20s and 30s. And the degree is literally just the angle of the point of the piece at the end there. Just about see that? There we go. So it's just a difference in the angle of that point. Very, very hard to tell. I personally can't tell the difference between a 15 and a 20. But that's just me. And the idea is we'll set this in our router. For that you will need an adapter collet, a 6.35mm. And you literally just slot that in there like so. Make sure you put it in the silver end. And the darkened end, that goes into your router. Now you can use that in a 1/4" shafted router. If you haven't got a large router like that and you prefer to use a Dremel router attachment, that will fit straight into the Dremel just as it is. They are the same size as a Dremel piece, 3.175mm. So we'll set this up to 3mm deep, and the idea is we're just going to cut round all these lines here, round the buttons, round his face, and then we're going to route out the backing of all this. So all these areas here will be slightly raised by 3mm. Now I've done this 2 or 3 ways on these kind of projects. Normally I would route it all out and then go around with a scroll saw and cut it out. Doing it that way, you obviously got different depths. You've got this one will be 3mm higher than that, and it's a little bit awkward. You can do it, or the other option was to literally draw a pencil line all the way around, so you've got a piece of wood going all the way around. What I'm going to try today is to literally do our CNC side of things, and then I'll use a scroll saw to literally cut it out, and we'll just leave a little section at the top and a little section at the bottom here, just so it keeps it in place, and that will give us a nice firm grip for the router to run on the rest of it. And when we come to route it out, we can literally just go straight off the edge there if we wanted to, but remember, we've already cut down that with a saw. And once we've routed out all the background, we can pop it back on the saw again, and literally just nick off that section there and that little bit there that's holding it in place. I have tried to cut out it before previously, but when you have it on the table and you've got your router on, this middle section tends to sink in a bit, and it's just a little bit moving around a little bit too much. Another option was to have one of these clamps. If I can just find one quickly. If you do prefer to cut it out first, you could put a large clamp on there and tighten that back up, just so it keeps it in place. You could route out this bottom area, and then turn it around, put it on that side, and route out the top area. So today, first time, I'm actually going to cut it out first before we route out the back. Okay, let's get it set up and we'll start routing this one out. Right, we've gone around all the bits that we want to leave. Just take a couple of minutes just to shade in the areas that we want to remove later. All that area and all around the face here. Just so you don't go away, come back and start routing out these buttons or the mouth area. That will be the end of this project. Like I said previously, normally I would get an end milling bit and just basically start removing all the background now. But I do find when I come to cut out this section with a scroll saw, because you all have the difference in height, it's just a little bit more awkward to follow a line, because obviously that line won't be there, because we've routed right up to it with our router. So for this one, it's just going to be the first time I'm going to try this. I'm just going to cut it out with a scroll saw and just leave that section there and the section above the head. Doesn't have to be too much, could be half the distance as that, just to hold that in place with the surrounding wood, and that will just make it a little bit easier when we come back with our end milling bits, which I shall show you in a minute, to remove the remainder of the body, leaving these nice buttons and the face raised up slightly. And then once we've removed all that, and the good thing about it with the router, you can literally just come off the edge there. Doesn't really matter, because remember, we've already cut this with a scroll saw. Once we've removed all the body area, we'll come back and basically just nick off that section there and that section there, and then the old piece should fall out nicely, all routed out and ready for a bit of tidying up. Are you with me so far? Just before we cut this one out, if I just show you quickly, for those that's new to the scroll saw, there's 3 different types of blade, what I also call basic blades. There is fancier blades out there with teeth facing down and teeth facing up, but your basic ones, you do get what they call a pin blade that has a pin at both ends. And that just hooks onto your more cheaper saws, and your blade wants to feel smooth on the way down. Excuse me, smooth on the way down and rough on the way up, and you always have the teeth facing towards you. That way you know your blade's in the correct way. These are ideal for this one today because it's all outset cut and it's nothing too fantastic. So you would get away with a pin blade. If you're doing a lot of detailed work, you've got to get into really small areas. Imagine trying to get inside the mouth there. You just wouldn't get in because of the pins in the way. So you would use a pinless blade. Obviously no pins on that one. They're better for your more, they come with your more fancier saws. Same again, you want the teeth facing towards you. Just about feel them. Smooth on the way down and rough on the way up. And they're perfect if you're doing a lot of detailed stuff where you need a small blade. fit in like so. Now the one I prefer to use is a spiral blade. The teeth are actually spiraled the complete length of that blade, so they will cut in any direction you want. No turning the wood or nothing. I love them though. They're a good blade. They take a little bit of getting used to, and they're not for everybody, but they're worth giving a try. Unfortunately, on my old drapper saw, I have to use these adapter clamps, and we have one at top, one at bottom. Take up your tension, and we'll start cutting this one out. Remember, we're going to cut it all out, but just leave the little section there at the bottom and a little section at the top. It might work, it might not. We'll give it a go. Let's cut it out now. Right, you can see from that we've gone all the way around with our scroll saw. So that's nicely cut out now. And remember, we've left those little sections here, basically just to keep it in place. This just allows that scrap piece of wood that goes around the edges, and it's going to make it a lot easier when we come to route out the centre, the body part of the gingerbread man himself. This is the first time for me, so far so good. It looks like it's still in place. And literally when that is all routed out, we'll just pop it back on the scroll saw and just nick off those sections at top and the bottom. Or literally you could just cut straight across here with a saw and sort it out with a sanding drum and a Dremel. Okay, let's clear out the body section bit now. Now I'm going to use my end milling bits. I use these on all my projects. And there's a fair bit to remove, but just take your time. These little ones are perfect because obviously we've got to get round the eye there and inside the mouth. Once you've done your smaller bits, you could have done that with the CNC bit, to be honest. Like I've removed that section there. And all we'll do is pop that in the adapter reducer collet, 6.35mm, remember. And you literally just slot that in there, up to those plastic barriers. And we'll set it to the same depth, the 3mm, which was over there, remember, or we could just set it to that bit there. I just like to use these, just a personal preference thing, and we'll start clearing this one out. There is bigger pieces out there, these metric straight bits. This bit came with my router. I purchased a second-hand router. This came with it, and it clears out really good. I don't even know what it's called. And I also got another bag, loads of little bits here. Just finding the ones that work for you, and I'm quite happy with my end milling bits. If I can just show you quickly, this router bit, that's actually 3 inches. That's 3 inches of routing. I tried this when I did a previous project. I couldn't even hold the router with that in. It was just ridiculous. It just came out here somewhere. It was just, well, I don't know how they can even invent those things, because I struggle to even hold it. But hey, I've got one now. We'll put it with the rest of them. Okay, let's pop in the end milling bit, and we'll start routing out the body on this one. Right, we've removed all the body sections with our end milling bits. Now it's still a bit rough and ready, remember. It's only cheap fencing wood. But we will be going over this with sandpaper and a flexi cable on a Dremel with nice engraving bits, just to give it a general tidy up. But so far you can see the general effect we're going for. Now as regards to cutting it out with a scroll saw and just leaving that top section and that bottom section, that's worked fantastic. I'll definitely be using that option again. The good thing about it is, as you're routing this out, you can basically just come right over to the side there. There's no concentration needed really, and you can actually go over that. Remember, we've already cut it out. I've actually removed a nice chunk there and a nice chunk there, and I've drawn the line back on with a pencil. So we have that little bit to remove with a scroll saw, and that little bit there as well, and hopefully it's all pop out nicely. So yeah, that certainly worked, so I'll use that again like I say. While we're here, we might as well put our slit in the back while we have this more of a surround to work on with the router. Now it's just a case of putting a slit in. Personally, I would like to go on a little bit higher, but I seem to have got a great big knot in the way, so I'm going to lower it down a bit and see how that works. If it doesn't hang too clever, you can literally route a slit across here. It doesn't have to be a perfect straight, or put one across his head. For my hanging purposes, I like to route out a slit in the back with a T-slot bit, a keyhole T-slot bit, that looks like that. That has a 1/4 inch shaft on it, so no adapter required. And this one is a 5/16. About to see it there, hopefully. No, going once, twice. No, too late. So it's a 5/16, take my word for it. I like to have a bit of a scrap wood to one side, and a couple that I've tried out previously. I know this one works fantastic, so we'll set this up in the router, set it to that depth. We know we're going to be right. It's the same type of wood, so we're not going to go all the way through, and that's just enough to hang on your screws. Just find one here for you quickly. Once you've routed it out, that slots onto your screws that's in the wall or your fence. And if you just have the end of the screw showing once you've tied it in, that will go on there nice and tight. If you find it's a little bit too tight, just unscrew it from the wall slightly and it'll be a lot looser. Okay, I'll quickly pop this T-slot bit, 5/16, into a router. We'll route this slot out, and then we'll remove the top section and the bottom section on the scroll saw. Right, you can see from that we've removed the bottom section and the top section. That just frees him from the surrounding waste wood. And that's in basically the shape that we're after. He stands at 9 inches high, remember. I have done one of these on a previous video and it was a lot bigger than this one. So now we just need to general tidy up, just to round off these edges, just sand it down a little bit and make these a bit more crispier around the face and the buttons and stuff like that. Now, I like to use a flexi cable. This attaches to a Dremel. They all attach to any rotary tool. And for cleaning out with, I like to use engraving bits. If you put on Dremel engraving bits on eBay, you'll get these cheap eBay specials, as I call them. You get 30 plus for next to nothing, and they work fantastic. I've certainly got no issues with them. I'll have one with a flat bottom like that, and we literally can just go around, give it a general tidy up. We use a bit of sandpaper, and we might even get the mouse sander on. Once it's all nicely shaped and tidied up, we'll put a bit of paint on it. Right, that's enough sanding down for me. As you can see from that, we've got the basic shape. I actually got a CNC bit in, I don't know if you can see that, and just routed a little line across there. They are meant to have the joints of where his legs have come away, and they've used whatever icing, sugar, whatever it is, to attach his legs. So it's a little details like that that you need to look out for. Now, painting wise, just cheap acrylic paints. I use Crawford and blacks. I like to add a bit of water in with them as well, just to make more like a stain than an actual paint. Now I was thinking of putting boiled linseed oil on this, but I just don't think it's going to be dark enough. So we're going to mix up some kind of browns, a bit of a mustard colour. We'll draw the body and then give it a quick sanding over, just to make these lines a little bit crispier. And then we'll paint the rest with the blue, the whites and the reds, and then we'll make a bit of purple up for the buttons. Okay, once that's all done, we'll spray it with some crystal clear, make it nice and shiny, and this project will be about finished. I'll go off and paint this and we'll come back when we're about done. Right, that's it. This little project is over. Now I gave him 3 or 4 coats of the crystal clear, just for a nice shine, and maybe a little bit of protection with it going outside. You can see that lovely shine on there. And that's it. This little project is over. I will seal the back once I finish this video, just to make sure we've got a bit on the back there. But apart from that, that's it. Now it's nice and brown. He's probably spent a little bit too long in the oven. I should have him on gas mark 5 maybe. But apart from that, I'm happy with this one. Nice little fun project on rough fencing wood. We used CNC bit 20 degree to route out our lines, and then we cleared it all off, the remainder of the body, with an end milling bit. And before that, we cut it out with a spiral blade on a scroll saw of Pegas number 5. He measured in at 9 inches by roughly 6 inches across. And that's it. This little project is over. Nice, easy little project, that basically anybody can make these. Just enjoy it, that's the main thing. Okay, thank you very much for watching.